Hi everyone, my name is Joshua and welcome to Northern Solar. In this video we're going to be looking back at February 2024 at a solar installation here in Cheshire to answer the question, are solar panels worth it? So yeah, a bit late in the month this time, it's almost the end of March already, but I've been quite busy here in the house with a few things going on. More about that later on as we look to improve our eco sort of energy efficiency in the house and using less gas as much as possible. So yeah, quite a lot of stats to get through for the production, generation, how much money we've saved, how we've managed to use our solar battery and everything in the house. So yeah, let's jump straight into the presentation. So for those of you that are new to the channel, as usual, we start with a bit of a review of what we've got here at the house. So we have 8 kilowatt of solar panels on the roof. That's 4 on the front of the house which faces west and 4 kilowatt on the back of the house which face east. Those are connected to a SolarEdge 6 kilowatt inverter, and we have 13 kilowatt hours of Growatt battery storage with that. So here's the graph of the production in February. As you can see, really mixed bag again. Some really low days. The lowest here, I think it was the 21st, was a low of 1.66 kilowatt hours in the day, which is pretty terrible. But then yeah, not too bad. A few days later, 15.95 kilowatt hours in one day in February. So averaging 6.96 and a total of 201.88 kilowatt hours generated across the month of February. But as you can see, yeah, we've got quite a lot of low days, so below 5 quite often, and occasionally above 10. But yeah, in that sort of middle region, 6-7 kilowatt hours a day on average. You can see the difference a sort of heavy cloudy day makes when you've got thick dark grey clouds overhead. You're getting very little, and then a nice clear day, even though the days are still relatively short. 15 kilowatt hours in a day is more than we use in the house to power the house, so it's a good balance even in February. 201 kilowatt hours of generation. So comparing that to the prediction from the SolarEdge model that we have at the house, which was given to us as part of the installation, we were predicted to generate 174 kilowatt hours and we actually generated 201. So over 15% above the predicted generation. Now you can kind of take these predictions with a bit of a pinch of salt. They have to be quite conservative because they're not allowed to overestimate how much you get. So they generally are quite conservative. And you can see last month we were 23% above the prediction. So I'm expecting each month generally to be above that. What's more interesting is if we compare it to last year, so February 2023 versus February 2024, we generated a heck of a lot more last year, 258 kilowatt hours versus 200, so 12% less this time around, an average of 9.22 kilowatt hours last February, as you can see. So January was pretty much on par, February looks to be lower. March has already started when I took this picture of the graph, but I think we're probably still behind the curve on March for now, but we'll get to that in next month's video. But yeah, not a great month in terms of weather in February in Cheshire. So I took a typical day, again this is quite early in the month, to show you kind of what the generation looks like. Starting around 8 AM now in February, solar panels sort of speed up pretty quickly. By lunchtime we're generating in the region of 2.5 kilowatts when the sun's out. And then around about 5 o'clock generation finishing. So yeah, starting to see the days get a little longer now. Again, this was only early in February, and if you're watching this in March as it's been recorded, you'll probably have noticed the weather is starting to get a bit better and the days are starting to get a bit longer. So what I'd like to try and do is explain how we use the power in the house and when it comes in and what our consumption's like. So on that same day of generation, this is the graph from our inverter which shows the battery and the battery usage and the consumption in the property. So we're starting here at midnight, and you can see the battery is fairly low, around 40% from the day before. And then you can see here we have this grid usage, which is charging the car once it's plugged in and also charging the battery. And you can see I think the car's about 7 kilowatt and then the battery is about 3 kilowatts, so a total of around 10 kilowatts of charging you can see here. And this green graph behind is the state of charge of the battery going up from around 40% all the way up to 100%. And we do this during the off-peak window in our tariff, which starts at midnight and finishes at 4:30. So the battery's full by about 4 AM, and you can see here there's other usage in the house, which we've also got electric water heater to heat the water in our immersion tank, which comes on overnight during this time as well. And as you can see here, this is the battery slowing down as it gets towards its full. So you see it's going quite fast here at 3 kilowatt. And then here, as it gets towards 100%, it starts to slow down. So you can see this is the power consumption slowing down. And we have a little bit of overnight usage. We have underfloor heating in the new bathroom we've had put in to keep the tiles warm. And that ticks over overnight as well. So in February it's fairly cold, so you've got a little bit of usage overnight. And then you can see once the off-peak window closes, the battery starts to discharge to meet the load in the house. So it's not much load overnight. We've got these little spikes of the underfloor heating ticking on occasionally to keep the bathroom tiles warm. And then you can see the usage, the battery sort of levels out here as the sun starts to come up and cover what we're using in the house. This green graph behind here is the solar graph. So as you can see, by about 9 a.m. we're covering, maybe in 8:30, we're covering the base load in the house with the solar. So the battery isn't having to discharge here, and actually by about 9:30 it's actually starting to charge the battery because we have excess in the house. And then as soon as that battery becomes full again, you can see the consumption rises in the house. This is our My Energy Eddy heating the hot water from our surplus energy. So once the battery is full, the My Energy Eddy turns on and starts to heat hot water. So that means that all the water we've used in the morning for showers, washing up and all that sort of stuff starts to get reheated by the sun here. And you can see we've got plenty of excess solar to do that. And then as the sun comes down, 4 or 5 o'clock, you start to see there's no solar, so the battery starts to discharge again to meet that load. And then we've got all the sort of evening loads for cooking, dishwasher, all that sort of stuff happening overnight. Later in the evening, and you can see the battery starts to discharge. So by the end of the day, we're at about, say, 60% on the battery on this particular day. So that kind of covers how the usage works in the house. And you see, even in February, the solar does play a part here. You can see the battery charging overnight from the grid when it was cheap has helped power the house when we've needed it. But the solar, which wasn't the best day of the month by any means, but it was enough to recharge the battery and to start heating the hot water for us and cover all of the load in the house during the day. So this is the data from our Octopus account, which shows how much we imported and how much we exported during February. So our grid import is 645 kilowatt hours. So that's basically mostly overnight from our off-peak tariff, which means that we are charging the cars that we have 2 electric cars in the house, and also charging the home battery back up on the cheap tariff. And then these days you can see this grid export. Sometimes these will have been during saving sessions where we've purposely turned the battery into grid charging, which means that it will get us paid extra for those saving sessions. There's a few extra pounds to be made in the month if you're willing to go to the effort of exporting during those times. And then occasionally, if it's really sunny and the battery is full and the hot water is all completely heated, then there will be natural export from the house to the grid if we've got any excess solar at that time. But you don't expect much export in February, 19.12 kilowatt hours, and I would imagine at least half of that was probably done on purpose from the battery for the saving sessions. So as I mentioned, we have a split rate tariff. We use Octopus Go, which means that we pay 9 pence per kilowatt hour in our off-peak period between midnight, 4:30 and 4:30, and then the rest of the time it's 31.4 pence per kilowatt hour during that peak time of the day. We get paid 8 pence per kilowatt hour to export to the grid, and our standing charge rate is 60.18p a day. Don't even get me started on standing charges. It keeps going up and up and up, and I think I just got a letter to say it's going up again, but anyway, can't do anything about that. What we can do is manage our usage better. So that's how we do it with our solar and batteries. Obviously there's lots of other tariffs out there available. This one works for us at the moment. We do have 2 electric cars. We have a pod point electric car charger. So we're not eligible for the Octopus Intelligent Go tariff, which gives you sort of slightly quite better rates for export and more like longer charging rates overnight and stuff. But at the moment we're not compatible with that system. So Octopus Go works really well for us. It keeps it nice and simple for us as well. So what everybody is really interested in is solar figures and financials for the month of February. So as you can see, as I mentioned here, 202 kilowatt hours of solar generation, 19 exported to the grid, which means we self-consumed 183 kilowatt hours of that power in the house. So that's whether we've used it directly in the house or charging the battery or heating the hot water 183 kilowatt hours from the solar directly into the house. We used 646 from the grid, but as you can see, 634 of those kilowatt hours were during the off-peak periods, charging the car and charging the home battery, and just 11 kilowatt hours from peak time usage. So our total consumption in the house for February was 829 kilowatt hours. So we exported 9.5% of that and consumed 90.5% of what we generated. And then you can see here the usage breakdown of what we were consuming was 22% directly from the solar, 76.5% from the off-peak grid, and 1.4% from the peak time grid. So pretty happy with that balance. It's pretty much what we've come to expect most months. The solar starts to play a bit more of a part now we're getting into spring, and hopefully use less from the grid. So for financials, I tried to split this out between what it would have cost us without solar and what it did cost us with solar. So sometimes it's difficult to estimate what it would have cost without solar, but we know the standing charge wouldn't have changed, so that's the same on both £17.45. Our bill for February was £60.68 for the grid usage, and our estimate would have been for £185.97 for grid usage if we'd not had solar. I've got another sheet which I'll go into later, which explains kind of what we put into our assumptions for what would have been, what we would have spent if we hadn't have had solar. It's quite difficult, it's very subjective, but that's our estimate and it seems fairly reasonable to me, and that kind of calculates our savings from that. So total electricity cost without solar, including standing charge, would have been £203.04, and our with solar cost was £78.13. We did get some small export payments for the amount we exported, £1.53, and an extra £1.47 for saving sessions earnings. So our total net electricity cost for February was £75.13 versus what we think it would have been at £203.43. So a monthly saving estimated at £128.29. So overall, if you take what the cost of our solar was, not including the standing charge, the cost for our grid usage and how many kilowatt hours we actually consumed in the house, it works out at 7 pence per kilowatt hour on average. So at this time of year, we're paying 9 pence in the off-peak. So you can see the solar is having a little bit of an extra effect here. It's saving us that extra 2p per kilowatt hour at this time of year, whereas the battery and the off-peak buying of the electricity for charging the car and charging the home battery is saving us a significant amount at this time of the year. So comparing that with February 2023, again, things are quite different now. We have 2 electric vehicles in the house, we have electrically heated hot water, lots of different sort of factors to take into account here. It's hard to sort of put into all these graphs, but if we're trying to compare like for like, last February we generated a lot more, we exported a lot more, but our total consumption overall was less. We consumed less from the grid, and that's again down to the fact that now we have 2 electric cars to charge in the month, whereas this time last year we had 1 electric car and one, actually the other one was a plug-in hybrid, but it didn't really have too much charging to do. So yeah, you can see our total consumption has gone up by about 10%, and this month the generation was down significantly. So oh yeah, that's a good point. I think I stated the drop off in solar production at 12% earlier. It was actually more like 20%, I think. I must have made a typo there, never mind. So yeah, again, the solar breakdown, we exported a higher percentage last year, but the usage graph is very similar from the terms of peak time usage and off-peak usage. So generally what we've seen is the same as last year in terms of usage patterns. And you can see here costs for solar last year is significantly higher on the standing charge this year, which I think is incredible how it can possibly go up 32% in a year, but yeah, another day, another argument. And then yeah, our cost for the grid usage has gone up. We spent more on we bought more power energy from the grid, so we've spent more on it. So our total electricity cost has gone up. Our export earnings are slightly down because we didn't export as much. And then it's kind of against assumed costs without solar. This year I've assumed it at £203.43 for what we would have used for that total. Last year I actually had it higher. The assumptions I was using last year had a higher assumed cost for for electricity without solar. So our savings are sort of theoretically down on last year's assumptions, but it's really difficult with savings because you're kind of having to guess what it would have cost you without it. So there's a lot of factors that play into account there, and it's difficult to calculate compared to just saying what it actually cost us per kilowatt hour of electricity. So yeah, as I was saying, I have this payback calculator, which again is very subjective, but what we've done is we've put in our assumptions and run it out over 25 years to see what sort of figures we're looking at. So we estimate our annual consumption in the house in total and what the import and export rates are, standing charges and everything like this. The total cost for our installation when we had it done was £15,215.50, and we are able to generate 6,656 kilowatt hours per year. This was based on first year numbers, and then it's how much we self-consumed, how much we exported, the system degradation over the time we have it, estimated at 0.5% per year, annual inflation in electricity prices, which, I mean, how do you predict that? It went up massively in the last couple of years. It may be slightly coming down now, so it's really difficult to predict this. And then the assumptions around what we're using during if we didn't have solar. So assuming using 40% of our electricity during the off-peak time, if we didn't have electricity from our solar, could we still shift our usage into the off-peak window for charging the cars and using things like dishwasher or washing machine overnight, and then 60% during the peak time. And then so all these assumptions boil down to what we think we saved. So if you look here, summing up the savings each year, we're getting to a positive return in somewhere between year 7 and year 8, which is kind of seems to be the standard. If I change a lot of these assumptions, these numbers do change, but it's generally around 7 years for payback of the system. And again, there's a link in the description for this spreadsheet to help you play around and change your assumptions on what you think you might be able to generate, how you might use your electricity, and what sort of payback period you'd be looking to get from that. So yeah, as I mentioned, we have 2 electric cars in the house. We have the Renault Zoe for over a year now, and in February we did 782 miles at an average of 3.9 miles per kilowatt hour. We charged 190 kilowatt hours into the car during February. 45.85 of those were at home, costing 9p per kilowatt hour on the overnight charging, so that's a cost of £4.13. 40.7 kilowatt hours of those were charging at work, which very luckily for me is free, so we were able to get 40.7 kilowatt hours for nothing there. Did quite a bit of public charging on this month. We had a trip down to the sort of southeast, so quite a lot of miles on that trip, and 103.4 kilowatt hours of charging at 70p per kilowatt hour on the public charging networks at various motorway services. So the overall cost this month for Zoe was £76.51, which is working out just short of 10p per mile, which is still pretty good. And this is the highest by a long way that I've had since I had Zoe, because it's more public charging than anything else for these miles. I think about 500 or 600 miles in total was that trip down to the southeast and back again. So yeah, coming out at 10p a mile when heavily reliant on the public charging networks. If we assumed we had a petrol car doing the same journeys at an average of £1.40 per litre and 40 miles per gallon, those same miles would have cost us £116.95. So even with all the public charging this month, we still saved £40.44 in February. So our other car is the Volvo C40, which we've had for about 6 months now, I think. We did 811 miles in that one at a much less efficient 2.3 miles per kilowatt hour. Home charging of 150 kilowatt hours at 9p per kilowatt hour, so that's £13.50 of cost to charge at home. 207 kilowatt hours were done at work, which was free, so this one works out much cheaper, just short of 2p per mile. Assuming the same 40 miles per gallon petrol equivalent of £1.40 a litre, that 811 miles would cost us £129.04, so £115.54 saved in February. As I like to do at the end of these videos, anyone that knows me and watches these videos, I do like to plug Octopus Energy. I don't work for them, but I've been a customer of them for a long time now, and they've always been really great for me in terms of being able to switch tariffs to the most efficient and commercially viable type of tariff for us. It makes our life a lot easier when we're getting export payments and split rate tariffs, and being able to get all of your data from Octopus Energy's website to be able to analyse it and see where you can make more savings. What I'd like to do is, if anyone is considering switching energy supplier, and if you are looking at it, I highly recommend looking at Octopus Energy and seeing what they can do for you. If you do decide to switch to Octopus Energy and use the link in the description for my referral, you will get a £50 credit on your bill, and I will get a £50 credit on my bill. Massive thank you to those people that have helped the channel by using the code already. It's helped us cover the cost of our gas central heating in the house over the winter. It's been very, very, very appreciated. So thank you very much to anyone who has used that code. So that is kind of it for February's video. As I say, apologies for it being so late this month. We've had a lot going on in the house, quite a bit of work. We had a bathroom refitted, and we've actually just started an installation of an air-to-air heat pump system in the house. So yeah, it's an air conditioning system, but it can heat and cool and dehumidify and all of that. So quite a bit of work going on in the house on that, and looking forward to showing you more of the results of that in next month's video. Yeah, so obviously we've got gas central heating currently. We're trying to use that as little as possible, and also we've had a temporary air conditioner that we've used over the last couple of years, a sort of portable one that's been able to move around the house, and it's worked really well. It's just very noisy and a bit more cumbersome to have to move it into different rooms, so we've bit the bullet and gone for a air-to-air heat pump system, which I'll go into more detail in next month's video. But yeah, let me know what you think, how your solar got on in February. If you've got solar, let me know how your generation was. Was it down on last year's? Because ours was pretty significantly down. It's pretty poor weather. Luckily March has started a bit better. It's pretty sunny outside today, so hopefully get some good generation. And if you're considering getting solar, drop us a comment in the boxes below. What sort of system are you looking at, and how do you think it's going to perform for you? And if you've got any questions, there's loads of people like to answer them in the comments as well. There's always some good discussion around payback periods and assumptions around costs and financials and everything. It's a really interesting subject. It's difficult to be very precise on a lot of these stuff, but what I can say is for us, we can answer the question, are solar panels worth it? For us, definitely yes. It does matter massively what your system is like, what sort of consumption patterns you have in the house, how you make the most of what tariffs you're going to be on. There's not just a case of sticking solar on the roof and it'll save you loads of money. It is definitely more involved for that, but if you're willing to put the time and effort into setting it all up and getting everything working for you, maybe some adjustments to your consumption patterns to help maximise the return on your investments. There are a lot of options out there to make money on these sort of systems. Again, thanks very much for watching. If you've got any recommendations for other things you'd like to see in these videos, please let me know. We're coming up to nearly 2 years of installation ever since the solar panels were installed, and things have always moved on. We've had solar, batteries, we've now got 2 electric cars, we've got an electrically heated water system, we're moving into electrically heated and cooled air. So there's a lot more things we're doing in the house to try and minimise our impact on the grid and our environmental impact in terms of not burning gas in the house, and also obviously financial returns where we can see them. But thanks very much for watching. We'll see you next time.